Well, hello there. I am Jamin V, and this is a tutorial for a Minecraft missile that explodes immediately upon impact. I'll go ahead and showcase that for you here. We would fire it off by updating the observer right here. It's a standard flying machine that will fly towards the target, and it uses TNT minecarts in order to make the explosion as instant as possible as soon as it hits a target where it stops the flying machine. Takes just a moment. I've actually put the target inside of the building so we get the best possible explosion. And there we go. That's a lot of damage. There are a few small rules for how the missile has to impact in order for the TNT to go off properly. So this TNT minecart in the back is the first one to go off. The slime blocks underneath it are pushed out of the way, and it needs to be able to fall at least 4 blocks in order for the TNT to go off. If it doesn't fall 4 blocks, it just will not go off at all. So in this case right here, if we were to fire the building normally, we would hit push limit right here. When we hit this block, that's where it would go off, and it would drop the TNT right here. It would fall at least 4 blocks, and we wouldn't have any issue whatsoever. But I wanted a more central explosion, so I had pushed it into here. I placed a dirt block right here as the target for where I wanted it to hit. And if you look here, these stairs are going to be in the way. It's not going to fall at least 4 blocks, so I had to remove the stairs in order to make sure that it would explode properly. Also, because I'm firing it into the building, I needed to remove these blocks right here to make sure that the honey and the slime blocks didn't stick to anything on their way in, because that would also cause an explosion. So I had to remove those blocks as well. So a little bit of extra prep in order to maximize the explosion, but if you're firing it just at the front of something, you're probably not going to have any issues like that. Just make sure you're not firing it directly above an overhang. If there is an overhang, just cut a hole in it so that that TNT can fall through. So if I were firing it like over here or something like that, obviously I'd stick to these blocks and that cause a problem, but if I were 1 block above here and I hit it right there, it wouldn't fall far enough, so that wouldn't work right there either. I'd have to like cut a hole or something like that in order to make sure that the explosion worked properly. So just be aware of that. If you're firing the missile at a taller target, then you may be able to get the TNT to detonate properly, but it may not explode high enough that it reaches this front TNT to set off the larger explosion. So the back TNT primarily only fires up and down. The front TNT is to create a wider explosion to do more damage. So if you don't have enough TNT in this back one, then we may not actually reach the front TNT in order to cause the larger explosion there. So if I fire this missile off here, we've only got a few TNT in that back. It's going to hit the ground. It's going to detonate properly, but it's not going to cause the explosion that we want. Not really what we're looking for. To solve that problem, we just need to make sure that we put enough TNT in this back slot right here. So that original explosion, that was just 4 TNT, which worked fine for that house over there, but for the larger building, we need quite a bit more. We actually want to overkill it a little bit. I've put 24 TNT into this. Not super practical, but we're not here for practicality. We're here to blow stuff up. So if I send this thing on its way, it should actually reach that front TNT and cause a much bigger explosion this time. There we go. Wow. I will add that firing at a taller building like this can be kind of difficult. You may want to aim near the base or give it a platform for the TNT to fall onto. TNT is unpredictable, and the further it drops, the more randomness you add to it, and it could fire the TNT plenty far and high enough in the air and still just completely miss. And you may have to add that much more TNT to give you a better random chance of actually hitting the other TNT, and it could still miss. I've had that happen. So you can fire at larger buildings like this. It just may require more TNT, or you may have to do a little bit of setup. So keep that in mind. So like I said, the back TNT controls how tall the explosion is. The front TNT controls how wide the explosion is. This is a very large building. That last explosion took 150 TNT, and it still didn't take out the entire building. TNT individually isn't that explosive. This is a very large building. It takes a lot of it, so you may want to keep that in mind. For smaller buildings, you won't have nearly as much of an issue, but this is a very big one. So here I've got only 24 loaded in here, and you will notice that we will not get quite as big of an explosion at all. Yep, not quite as big. And so now I have about 500 TNT loaded into this thing. Just for absurdity, this is probably going to lag out the flying machine a little bit, but let's go ahead and give it a try. Yeah, that is definitely pretty laggy. And there are a bit of diminishing returns. I don't recommend putting this much TNT into something because, again, diminishing returns. But let's see what happens. That's pretty impressive, but actually, I think it did less damage than when we did 150. There's still plenty of testing and playing around that we could do. If there's something specific that you want to blow up, I recommend you test it out in creative and see how much TNT you're going to need, where you want to hit it, if you need a platform or not. Just play around with it. It's a lot of fun. This isn't a very practical device. That's not really the purpose. That's not really what we're trying to do here. It's mostly just an awful lot of fun. There will be a world download and a schematic down in the description. The schematic has some obsidian blocks in it like this. Those are so that if you paste it on a server, block updates don't cause the machine to fire itself off. You will want to remove those before you actually try to fire the machine. The one in the back actually doesn't need to be removed. You want to fire it by updating this observer right here. And if you build it in survival, make sure that you remove any rails that are underneath the minecart. And when you do so, make sure you don't accidentally knock out the block that's underneath it. Otherwise, it will blow up. And you don't want that to happen. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this showcase, and I hope you enjoy shooting at these buildings in the world download. Bye now!